Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, so the chief economist for Redfin predicted that home prices could decline because of what's going on in the real estate market, right? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to go through the article and talk about some points because it's important to understand what's going on short-term and long-term in the housing market. As we have said, the housing market's not going to crash. No one knows what prices are going to do. Anyone who tells you that for sure is not telling the truth.
Well, and they've got some self-interest involved, right? I mean, we are seeing a lot of that.
Okay. Chief economist at Redfin, Daryl Fairweather, argued that a recession could coincide with a decline in home prices as prices continue to climb, even while data reveals that sales have slowed. So we still have home prices going up. Last month, we had the prices broke what benchmark for the first time ever, median prices?
Median prices went over $400,000 for the first time.
And even though sales, because interest rates have been up for over 6 months now.
Right, so
they've been going up, but home prices are still going up.
Yeah, they've been going up incrementally. But we're at a point now where interest rates are twice as much as they were a year ago.
Yeah, they're about double. They're still less than they were probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And actually, their interest rates today are probably, if you went back 15 years, this would still be the lowest they'd ever been.
Right.
Because the average rate is about 7.6%. And that includes the last decade, which they were between 2 and 3%.
Right.
Okay. Even as home sales slowed, so obviously that's a trend, prices kept climbing last month, according to NAR, which noted the national median home price jumped 14.8% in May. That's year over year. To 407,600, all-time high based on data going back 23 years. Obviously, that's the most. It wasn't more before 23 years, right? Here's a quote from the article. I think out of everything in the economy, the housing market is still in pretty solid space because of how well financed people were going into this inflation, and they had plenty of equity. Let's talk about that.
Right.
It's two separate things. So I want to talk to them about this financing, the quality of the people getting loans, right? And then talk about later the money down and the cash and all those numbers, because you know all that.
Right. So first of all, let's start with the people getting loans in the last few years, or basically since the Great Recession. These people are in good financial shape. They are responsible people. Their credit scores are really good because, of course, as a result of the last financial crash that was caused by the mortgage market, the lenders have learned their lesson, and they have really tightened up lending requirements. That means that you've got to have a good credit score, a good job, money in the bank. So these are people who are not only responsible on the front end as far as having a good credit score, but then they do have money to back it up on the back end because they do have to have sort of a safety net as far as some money in the bank after close of escrow. Okay, that's not to say that they have to have a ton of money, but they do have to have some money after close of escrow. And then on top of that, people have to come to the table with some money. Previously, before the last downturn, people could get 100% loans, and then on top of that, they could get a home equity loan for 25% on top of that. So they owed 125% of what the home was worth. That's not the case this time around. So we have much more qualified borrowers to begin with. These borrowers have money in the game. And on top of that, what we've seen is that most people in America, with something like over 90%, have at least 10% equity in their home, and 40% of homeowners out there own their homes free and clear. Now that gives a lot of support to housing. So we've got all the support for housing as far as people owning their homes free and clear or having a lot of equity. So all of this kind of plays into this narrative where people who don't have to sell their homes are not going to, and let's face it, nobody has to sell their home at this point. They've got these, if you do have a loan on the house, you've got this killer interest rate that you do not want to give up. So you're going to do everything you can to keep that loan in play. Maybe you'll go ahead and rent the house out or do something else, but you really don't want to give that loan up. So there are a lot of other things going on as far as housing and as far as the money that's involved in housing.
So it's 98.5% of all homeowners have at least 10% equity.
Okay.
Meaning only 1.5% of all. That means anywhere from I own 10% of my 400,000 to all of it, the whole thing. Only 1.5% have less than 10%.
Right.
And those are probably going to be people who like just recently bought, maybe did a VA 100% loan or something like that.
Right.
Right.
Well, even VA borrowers have been putting money down. I've seen that too. So so really, there are very few people out there without skin in the game, as opposed to during the Great Recession, where people, like I said, they didn't have any of their own money in play. It was all the bank's money.
Another quote from the article: "We're not going to see distressed sales." Interesting. We're not going to see distressed sales, which was the only reason the housing market crashed, which is the largest reason. It was all distressed sales, right? But we could see a decline in prices if the economy is hurt so bad that buyers just can't afford the high prices that sellers want. Let's talk about that really quick. You just said, I mean, basically nobody's forced to sell.
No.
This isn't like last time where there were people literally forced to sell,
Right.
and it tidal waved into everyone else being forced to sell. But when home prices drop, that doesn't mean, oh gosh, the house is worth less than I paid. I now have to. I'm forced to sell and give up my 2.5% interest rate. I can't believe it, right?
Right. So look, even if home prices adjust for, just for inflation or whatever, or just straight go down, even if they go down, your mortgage payment will still be less than if you went out and bought another house today. So if your mortgage payment is less than it would be to buy a lesser house today, why would you give that up? Even if, let's say for the sake of argument, you bought a $500,000 house and it's now worth $450,000, but your mortgage payment is still $1,000 less a month than if you went out and bought a $400,000 house today. That makes no sense. So why would you do that? So you wouldn't. So these sellers are not forced to sell. They can afford to be patient. They can afford to play the long game, which brings us to inventory. So because sellers do not have to sell, if they do not get whatever money it is that they feel is an appropriate sale price, then you know what? They're going to take their houses off the market and they're going to say, I'm going to wait it out. And that just reduces inventory. And again, it forces more people seeking to purchase a home into a situation where there's less inventory.
Another quote, Fairweather also noted that sellers don't want to drop their price either, and so they are just going to sit tight, especially since they have plenty of home equity and record low mortgage rates from last year. That certainly is interesting.
Right.
Anecdotally, I have heard of some people have moved because they're moving to a different place and they want to sell their house. They don't want to be a landlord, but they do it at great consternation, meaning they can't believe their rate was 2.7%. Now they got rid of the when they got paid off when they sold the house, because a lot of times they're making a couple $100,000,
right,
which is all tax free, and they roll that money into the next house usually as part of their down payment. But a lot of people don't have to sell. Like they're moving and they're like, I'll rent, or I've already bought another house. I'll just keep this one and just keep it as a rental.
Yep. Yeah, so a lot of people are in that position, and that's a good position to be in. Okay, look, putting your money in real estate is a good thing to do. It's been a traditional safe harbor, particularly in times of inflation. So those are good problems to have.
Another quote: so we're going to have fewer listings, fewer buyers, and that's going to mean a lot fewer sales. But still, high prices will stick around. So they could fall, but let's talk about that really quick. Let's say short term we have some, and in some markets prices could fall, some could keep going up, right? So you got the market kind of going sideways, bouncing around. But we still have a shortage of inventory, meaning homes available total. And when the Fed starts dropping rate and interest rates start going down again, people, that pent up demand, they're going to flood back into the market.
Right.
So actually, this is like the rubber band effect. You have some prices potentially going down short term, potentially, but then as soon as interest rates drop again, holy cow, the lid's going to blow off. I mean, it's just going to blow off. Yeah. It's going to be pretty crazy. That's my prediction.
Right. So, I know that we've all seen that new home starts are down. And the reason new home starts are down is because new homes are very sensitive to all this interest rate volatility, and they're very, very sensitive to the cost of materials, cost of labor. So with the supply chain issues and with interest rates rising, builders have decided to limit their exposure to all of this. It's not that they can't build, it's not that they can't sell the homes, it's that they've decided to limit their exposure because they don't want to carry any inventory, because they are looking at a market where there are fewer buyers who can afford this product. Because remember, a new home costs actually more than a resale home. And we've talked about this before, but a new home does cost more than a resale home. So they are very sensitive to this. So, we are still seeing a pretty hot market. It's not going to go on forever. And we're here telling you that it's not going to go on forever, but we do not see a crash on the horizon. We see the market leveling off, maybe having plateauing, but we're not seeing this.
And we'll know more in October, November, because that will be 9 months since the Fed started raising rates, and that'll also be naturally when inventory starts declining again. Because remember, it's going to take inventory to go up to a substantial level, over 1 million homes in the U.S. Right now, it's at about 400,000. So we'd have to go 2.5 times what we have now to get back to normal.
Right.
Okay, and then obviously what's going to happen is in the fall, that's potentially going to drop. And then, of course, we still have the hedge funds and Wall Street companies paying cash for houses.
Right.
Which is only going to accelerate if home prices drop a penny.
Yeah.
I predict.
Yeah.
And they'll take out the whole bottom part. So that'll leave the higher end homes for everyone else to fight over.
Right, and we recognize that there are black swan events out there, like, people that love to tell us in the comments that there are all these things that could happen, and we do recognize that, but we can't plan for those.
Yeah.
What we can do is we can look at the data that's available and use this data and think about it and have a thoughtful discussion about it, but we can't plan for, an asteroid or some other black swan event.
The last thing is, if somebody is telling you to wait 6 months or a year or 2 years, because I ran into an agent that basically gave that advice, don't buy, wait, the homes will be cheaper in 2 years. They might be, they might not be, but we don't know what interest rates are going to be like in 2 years.
Right.
And then what if interest rates are higher and home prices are higher too? Now you're like, oh, I just didn't buy. Because I know there are people out there from a year ago that said, I'm going to wait till home prices fall. And now they just paid another year of rent, and they don't have a house. Now they're hoping the real estate market falls. They need it to fall, and they need the perfect scenario. The market falls, interest rates go down, and then nobody notices this and decides to buy a house and compete for a house. Like, they want this panacea where the market tanks and real estate prices go down, interest rates go down. They go, oh, look at this. I can get a house at 1% financing, and I can pay $2,000 a month and have a house on the beach. And I think, and nobody else, it's a big secret, nobody knows. Like, we'll buy that really quick and get financed, and then prices can go back, right? Like, the market's pretty efficient, and it understands this. And then Wall Street would also, of course, have to, would have to, not run out with a bunch of cash and try to buy some houses too. So, I mean, it could happen, right? Anything could happen.
Anything could happen. So please subscribe, hit the notification bell, like the video, share the video, leave us your comments, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.